I think let's do that together. Okay, we're live now. Okay. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Isolation episode 3. I realized we didn't introduce ourselves the last couple of times. So my name is Gaurav Son. I'm a photographer. I shoot advertising and a little bit of fashion out of Bombay. And that's Ashit. Ashit, I think I'll let you introduce yourself.
Uh, Hi guys. I'm Ashit. I'm a photographer, mostly commercial work. I used to do editorial back in the day, but now I'm a purely commercial photographer.
Awesome. So yeah, so we're both, this is Ashit's idea. We're both stuck at home for the last few months, and there's been a little bit of work happening, but mostly like, not too time consuming. So we decided why not talk about our experience and kind of just give back to whoever is watching and can if they can even take back like a few things out of these conversations, then I think that will be a good thing. But yeah, so today's episode is all about lighting. We're going to talk about a few of the different brands available. We're going to talk about what we have been using over the last few years and over our careers, and just in general, the different types of lighting available in the market in India as of today. So where should we start, Ashit? What do you think? Where should we start?
I think maybe we just talk about the brands that are out there and prevalent in India,
Okay.
and just kind of take it from there. I think at least the brands that are really popular in India are Chrome and well, Profoto. I mean, I don't know if Profoto is that popular, but I think a lot of the Srishti marketing has put Profoto out there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's Chrome, there's Profoto, and Broncolor, which I know are really popular in India.
Correct.
Uh, but I mean, there are other brands like Breeze and stuff like that. That's kind of like the Leica of lighting. So
Correct.
it's there are very few people that actually use Breeze lights in India.
True.
And
True.
yeah, so I mean, just kind of talk about how you choose a light, why you choose particular lights, what has been the progression of lights over the past couple of years, why lights in the first place. So there are a lot of different things. So I mean, I know that this isn't really geared up to the the beginner photographers, and sometimes we tend to get a little technical, but
True.
we'll try. I mean, we'll try and maybe answer the questions that you guys need, but again, this is more from a professional's opinion of what we use, not really from a beginner's point of view. And then there are a lot of, I think there are a lot of review channels out there that talk about specs and lights and
Hmm.
stuff like that, and that's helpful for the beginners. But it's more about practical use that I think we can discuss more than anything else.
True. Very true. So personally, for me, I think for most photographers, when you first pick up a light, it's confusing. It's about should I pick up a plugged-in light? Should I get a battery-powered light? Should I get a continuous light? Should I get a flashlight? Should I get a studio light, or should I get a speed light, which is more portable and on-camera
Yeah.
flash?
And I mean, that's gotten even more complex after like TTL and HSS, because that's kind of changed the entire dynamic to not just, I mean, before we used to have a little bit more simpler, but now it's far more complex, and
True.
it's definitely made flash photography a lot more accessible to a lot more people, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of there's a different way of kind of working with flashes right now than there used to be. So I mean, before we should meter a lot of it and kind of judge it by eye, but now it's mostly TTL, and you can tweak it out a little bit to where you want it.
Very true.
So yeah, I mean that's again. So like when I started off with the Chrome lights. I mean, I think everybody started off with Chrome lights because
True.
they are honestly
True.
the cheapest option in India. But not all Chrome lights. So Chrome has, if I'm not mistaken, has a manufacturing unit that manufactures some in India, and I think the main units, the more expensive ones, come from Switzerland, if
Okay.
I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's probably why they have like they are the cheaper lights in India,
in
because
India, yeah, yeah.
yeah, because
But
these
abroad, yeah, sorry,
rates
but
aren't.
abroad they're quite premium lights abroad. I know that abroad they cost a pretty penny. So we're lucky that way
Yeah.
to have that kind of quality.
Yeah, so I mean that's the thing. It's like manufacturing, right? Manufacturing KTM's in India allows us to sell KTM's cheaper in India than they sell it
True.
all over the world. Because when you go buy a 390 Duke somewhere else, it's priced around your 400s and like a
True.
Ninja 300 and stuff like that. But I mean the reason that we get it cheaper is because it's manufactured in India. The same thing with Chrome as well. Uh, uh, I mean it's manufactured here, but they also have a pro line, which a lot of us remember. If we should shoot a while ago, they used to make these thousands that were really popular among pro photographers in India. This is
Yeah.
before the days of Broncolor and Profoto and stuff like that in India. This is maybe 15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Then I think Chrome and Profoto kind of came in. I mean, sorry, Broncolor and Profoto came in, and I think a bigger part of what they were selling us at that point was power.
Power. Yeah.
So yeah, because you had the Chromes that were 1,000 watt lights, but they take
Correct.
about 3 seconds to recycle. If I may be
True.
wrong on this, like don't hold my feet to the fire, but I think they should take about 3 seconds, and then you used to have the Profoto power packs that used to
Yeah.
recycle in about 1 second. That is your pro power packs, and then they had um, the not so pro ones. That's I think it was called the acute
Yeah.
packs, and those were cheaper but also slower recycling speed. But I mean, again, very premium prices when you compare it to what you were getting with Chrome. And
True.
then Broncolor, of course, and then Brise, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing Brise right, but yeah, that's one of the more premium brands
Tell
that
me,
came out.
tell me what a power pack is, because okay, so I've used these higher end lights a few times, when I get to rent them, but I know
Yeah.
you have more experience with them. So tell me, in terms of power packs, why would someone choose a power pack versus a single head strobe?
Okay, so let's start off with maybe the single head strobes because that's the most relatable to us. So we have a let's just say a single head strobe that holds all of the thing inside it. So basically, it holds all the components inside it, all of the power and the flash and the cooling and everything is inside this. So
Got it.
and they try to keep it as a smaller form factor as possible so that it's portable. So you don't spend too much money on it to buy it, number one, and it's portable that you can take it around and kind of use it in multiple places. So
True.
what the trade-off with that is, because you're trying to fit everything in one place, uh, your electronics aren't really the best in the business. So it won't give you the best color accuracy, it won't give you the best recycle times, and it won't give you the best power.
Understood.
So those are all your monoblocks. So they're called monoblocks, the one that you put power in. And then you have your monoblock battery pack. So basically it's a monoblock, but with a battery attached to it, which again has it has its trade-off versus a monoblock in the studio, because your monoblock battery packs offer you lower much longer recycle speeds, lower flash, a lot of different things. So there's a trade-off with everything, but also with the newer uh, battery monoblocks, they have TTL and HSS inside it. But I mean, now the monoblocks also are starting to come out with TTL and HSS built into
Correct.
them. So like the
Correct.
Profoto B2 and the Profoto, I think B1X, and the B1X is I think the newest pro level ones, and then they have the B10 and the B10 plus.
Got it.
And then the power pack is basically where it's all of your electronics sit in a unit, like a case, and then you have a wire and just the head. So it's like a suitcase with a wire that comes out, goes to the head, which is the actual flash, and that sits on top of the light stand. And that it's
Got it.
uh, these are far more expensive because these are made for just efficiency. They're made to basically be abused by and the most demanding of things. And these can get really expensive. Like I think a pack and two heads will probably run you anywhere between 8 to 9 lakhs.
Got
Like
it.
the Profoto Pro 10s or the Scoro 3200s. Yeah, I think the top left one is the Profoto. Yeah, that one. That's a Pro 10.
Just
So
look at this. I just want to highlight the pricing for this. that is that is a little crazy. It's $16,000.
yeah, that works out about what 8 9 lakhs 10 lakhs
Wow.
plus. I mean, yeah, it does go up, and that's the thing. It's like these things are meant to take a lot of abuse. They're not meant for uh, this casual use. They're
Correct.
basically meant to like, kind of torture to a large extent. And the
Yeah.
thing, yeah, because when we look at these prices, also like it's something that when we look at these prices, we go, shit, it's really expensive. But
Hmm,
we
hmm.
need to understand that these lights are manufactured in a certain part of the world where uh, these rates aren't deemed as too high. They're kind of industry standards.
Correct.
The problem with India is because we're so used to stuff like Chrome and getting them for about
Hmm. Hmm.
6,000-7,000 bucks a thing. These seem a lot more expensive.
Correct.
So, I mean, these oh, that's an acute D4. Yeah, but these packs are they like the at least the Pro 10s and things. They're meant to last. Like if you end up blowing up a flash tube, it's because
Yeah.
you've been torturing the lights like no one's business. And I've seen flash tubes being blown
Yeah.
up. I think
Wow.
in my entire experience with Profoto, I've seen two flash tubes or maybe three flash tubes blown up in the past 14 years, but
Wow.
maybe 10 years with Profoto. But in my experience with Chrome, I've seen uh, like maybe over like 2-3 dozen flashes.
Seriously. Wow.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
just like, and the thing is, after TTL, the even the Pro 10 packs I've seen like basically they're lot less used to the kind of torture we're going to give it
Correct.
versus the the 8A packs that were the one generation before this. So these are
Got it.
basically, I mean, more meant for a high speed sync at DTL
Yeah.
because I think everything else could have been done by the old packs. But yeah, I mean, there's just moving from one generation to another. So that's basically your battery packs. Then you have your mono blocks. Then you have your battery mono blocks, which basically are a mono block with a battery case. And then you have speed lights. And then I think also you have a lot of with Godox. You have a shitload of battery mono blocks that are relatively more affordable by Indian
Correct.
standards. But you definitely can't compare a Godox to a Profoto B1, not in
Sure.
terms of light. In terms of light, especially, like I think the B1, sorry, the AD 600 Pros
Yeah.
are kind of matching it to a great extent.
Sure.
But with recycling and kind of putting them through the torture that we do, like so I've tried to use a Godox on my professional shoots, but I found that it starts thermal throttling quite fast.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Wow.
and it just basically just stops. And
Yeah.
I find a lot less with the Pro Photos than the Godox.
Sure. Sure.
And I'm actually a fan of Godox. And like I mean, I use Profoto as my daily driver, so I don't know if I'm a fan of them, but
Hmm.
I only trust them for my commercial work because I know it works. I know that I'm not going to be running behind the lights. But with them moving to the TTL thing, there were some software issues where it was just a bit of a problem in the beginning to kind of get high speed sync to work with your camera because you had to update the head and then you had to update the trigger and then you had to make sure your camera had the right firmware. It was a little bit painful, but I think that to a large extent has been sorted out. But with Godox, I never had that issue. I don't know how they figured this out, but they just kind of like you switch on that trigger, you put it on thing, and it works absolutely fine. So I don't know what they've done differently, but they've done something like better than what Profoto did.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I know that you are more of a. I mean, even though we shoot a little bit of similar stuff in terms of advertising, you really shoot a lot of dynamic stuff, like a lot of like campaigns for sportswear and stuff where you need to push power. I know you're one of the few people that I know that complains about the power on the most high end like laptops that you own, battery packs and lights and stuff. You want like real power and you want it fast because you're shooting really fast stuff. Even though you're
Yeah,
shooting with like medium formats, you're like pushing all this equipment to its limits.
yeah. So I feel like we tend to do. I mean, pushing it to its limit in terms of advertising work, especially with the newer packs. Like you need to remember that before all of these packs, you had a 120, 250th sync speed,
Correct.
and I mean that we used to basically make sure that the models don't move too much, or you shoot on a camera that can sync at a higher speed. And the only cameras that could sync at a higher speed at that point were medium formats
Medium formats. Yeah.
because they should sync at whatever the up to 1 in 800 or up to 1 in 1600 depending on which lens you used. So the problem with high speed sync is because I mean, understanding the whole theory of how high speed sync works is it's multiple flashes during one frame, and that's how we tend to capture it. But it what it does is also tortures the power packs a lot more. And I've seen personally a Profoto Pro 10 pack just freeze, and this happened on a shoot when I was shooting uh, this rapper called Vivian Divine.
Correct.
So it's for a campaign. It just froze,
Was it
and
was it for Puma?
sorry,
Was that for Puma?
for Puma, yeah,
Yeah.
and it froze, but it didn't. The light didn't freeze, but it stopped taking a slave signal. So basically,
Got
it stopped working with the trigger, and I had
got
to
it.
switch the trigger to another B1, which is just basically pointed at the Pro 10, so it'll just flash it because I needed that high power.
Wow.
So that's I mean it's there is a lot of torture that's being put on these lights now because of high speed sync, and I don't think it's fair to just say that these guys aren't doing something right with it because they're doing the best that they can. But I think also camera manufacturers need to start looking at maybe lenses that have like leaf shutters in it, like a medium
Correct.
format lens or a thing. Because I know that in terms of progression, where they're going in terms of technology is, I mean, the next change after mirrorless is going to be shutterless. So kind of how the A9 works, where
Yeah.
you don't need it's a global shutter, so it's not really reading it line by line. I mean that's why you get what's it called? Um, what's
I'm
the lag called?
I'm forgetting that
Rolling
term as
shutter.
well.
So you get rolling
Yeah,
shutter in
rolling shot. Yeah.
yeah in video, right? Because reading it line by line. But I know that it's going moving to global shutters. I mean, it does move to global shutters. I think the sync speed is not going to be an issue. But I think before global shutters hit like medium format, it's going to take we first have to go through APC because that's the smallest form,
Correct.
and then it'll
True.
be full frame, and that's probably
True.
where Sony will hold it a little longer so that
Correct.
they get more of the market because they obviously see Fuji as a threat right now. So,
Correct.
but I know that Sony's kind of slowed down on talking about development of medium format sensors as well. So I
Oh
don't think
yeah.
they're looking at as high priority.
Got
I
it.
know they've committed to one more generation, but I don't know how many more generations after that they've committed to.
Oh really?
Which,
Okay. Wow.
yeah, at least I mean that's what I've heard from a few different sources. But yeah, but I also like the thing is flash and lights and artificial lights and everything. Uh, Back in the day, I think kind of came about because of the lack of light, right? When you're shooting in little bit more closed off areas, you didn't have as much lights as you had shooting. I mean, outdoor, and like that's why a lot of people preferred shooting outdoor because they didn't use too many lights to kind of light the entire thing. But with and that's kind of where I feel like artificial lighting came in, and that's also the kind of conversation that we're having about like a Canon versus a Sony sensor, right? The
Correct.
Canons, like you can't rescue a sky if it's blown out, but you can with the Sony, and I think
True.
that's kind of also changing how we use our cameras because if you can rescue shadows from a camera sensor, you don't need to carry an extra light with you to kind of bring those shadows out. I'm
True.
not. It's simple. Like the reason
Yeah.
that we have probes is to kind of fill up the light. But if you are capturing that or getting that information from the shadows in a way, you don't need the other part of it. And I
Right.
mean, it's yeah to creatively light it, yes, definitely you will need a lot of to give shape to a picture. You definitely use flashes in a different way, but I think that like the sensors getting more and more developed are definitely changing how we use it, like with the A7S2 that we spoke about, and how you can literally record in the middle of the night. And
Correct.
yeah, that kind of technology is nuts. Because I mean, imagine if you could do one 8 lakh ISO clean.
Correct.
What light would you use? You'd have to change your light format to be like not so powerful and just be more portable and something easier to set up, right? Or if it could capture everything and you could bring back only certain elements of it, why would you require light in the first place?
Very true.
But I mean, I feel like all of that is changing slowly. but hopefully we can use strobes the next 5 years at least.
Yeah, so I mean, personally for me, I have used more. I would say I started off with really budget lights,
Hmm.
from flashlights to continuous lights. Most of my personal first few experiences with flashlights were in the studios that I was, assisting at, and they had these really old, like, photo equipped Sonia lights. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
show you what do they look like. Sorry.
Colin Chrome 23,
Yeah.
and
So I couldn't
the
find a picture of that, but I have something similar. I'm just going to pull that up. This is what they kind of look like. This is a
yeah,
Sonia light, which is kind of a not a rip off, but a similar make. And
yeah. So I think Colin Chrome was basically made by Ellen Chrome.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know. I may be completely wrong about this, but yeah, they had
So I
this.
don't
That
know.
was
There was Elinchrom, there was Photoquip, and there was Sonia. All of them looked identical. I don't know who was who and who was legit.
so before Sonia and I think another company called Simpex.
Yeah, Simpex. Yeah.
Yeah, so before these companies, there was only Colin Chrome, and that was I think made
Correct.
by Ellen Chrome. Yeah, and then
Correct.
I think then they changed it to thing. But they had in these lights they had. So these are the budget lights. They had the 23, which is I think a 250 or 200-watt thing, and they had the
Correct.
500,
Correct.
which is so I think Colin Chrome 500, which is basically 500 watts. And
Correct.
these I think had only two modes. They had full and half power. I
I
think
was
they
just
had
going to
one
talk
switch
about
in the
that.
back. Yeah,
That was torture, because I remember when I was assisting, and like now it's so easy. I mean, you can sit back and you can just with the remote you can lower the power, increase the power. There
yeah,
we as an assistant, I used to carry butter paper and like this stack of butter papers with paper tape, and keep on diffusing and diffusing every time my boss or my mentor wanted to teach me something, or me sorry, he
mm,
wanted to shoot something and wanted something more diffused or harder. He would have something up on a boom light up ahead, and I would have to climb with a ladder, like a 18-foot ladder, put on the butter paper without falling down, and then come back
uh,
down. So every single, like, there should be 10, 15 changes at that time, for
yeah.
these small things. So I just remember when Elinchrom came out with the D lights and the 200 FXR 200s and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the BXR or
That's
BPR or something like that.
correct.
And
That's
the D
when
lights.
things correct.
Yeah. So I mean that's the power part of it that kind of changed. I mean a lot, but I mean obviously with these lights as well, the inconsistency in color was just mad. So
Yeah.
like again, like you wouldn't get the same color from picture to picture. That's what at the end of it
True.
you kind of start to pay for when you pay for more expensive lights is you're paying for consistency from shot to shot. So like while you're shooting a campaign, you can't have one shot that has a slightly
True.
warmer tone and the next shot has more like cooler tones, and then suddenly you have a green cast and it's just going all over the place, and that's I mean that's not acceptable. So I found while choosing my lights I went straight from Elinchrom to Profoto. I mean I used Broncolor in between, but mostly because Broncolor was marketed as the professional light, and Broncolor has a very good marketing team in India with Vihang. He's completely on point with the marketing, and I remember them marketing the Para. I don't know if you used to get these emails with the Para, the beauty light, and I at
Yeah,
that
yeah.
point a lot of the other photographers, the top 5 photographers at that point were using these lights. So while looking at it, you're like, oh my god! And they were using it because it was creating a different form of light, right? Because you were getting this typical para light that was coming. But then again, I don't think Broncolor was the original ones to that party. I think that light was actually made very popular. That para light was made very popular by Brise. I really feel hope I'm not butchering the name, but so these guys used to make a light which I don't know if we can maybe pull up 1 second. Yeah, I'm going to pull up some pictures on it. Yeah, so Brise was basically it's like the Leica of what do you call of Strobes. So like it's not a company that's very well known by a lot of people, but it's kind of the more popular brand among professionals. So this is the Brise focus, and then if you notice a little block at the back, that block used to go like inward and outward. That's how you could focus the light and defocus it. And this same company used to make different tungsten mods that you can basically put like continuous lights in between inside and run it off that as well. I don't know. This is what it looks like from the inside. I don't know if you can see that on the screen.
Can, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and they got quite big as well. I mean, they used to get like up to 25 feet, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So I mean, those were the more like even more expensive ones, and they used to make this thing called the brise. It was called the block or the cube,
Correct.
and yeah, and that was really. I mean, it was good but expensive, and if I'm not mistaken, it was really hard to service in India, and so they switched to they started adapting the lights to Profoto and Broncolor. So you can either get a Broncolor Scoro, or you can get like a Profoto 8A pack or now the Pro 10s, and you can just basically put it in and shoot.
Correct.
So that was, I mean I mean we never hear too much about Brise right now, but I know like photographers, like I know Prasad Nayak used to use them a lot before, and now I know that it's become a little bit more used among a few other photographers. But I mean, I personally like the light, but it's a very commercial light. It's a very commercial. What do you say?
Yeah, I know what you mean. A little high end, yeah.
Yeah, it basically you can create some really interesting commercial photography. There's a certain thing about the light that kind of gives you that look with it. But you can create it with other lights as well. I mean, you can create it with the para as well. But with the Brise, it just looks a little different.
Yeah,
And the fact that they had yeah. And then you have the ring light options, which basically the ring lights also used to plug into your power packs.
correct.
So Broncolor makes their own ring light. These guys make their own ring light. Profoto makes their own, and I think even Godox used to make their own. I know Electrum used to as well, but I don't. Yeah, there's another company, a company called Bowens that I think also used to make their thing. A lot of people have heard of the Bowens mount.
Yeah, because
But
of God.
the Bowens mount, yeah, I don't think they've ever heard of the company. But Bowens
Yeah.
was one of the companies that didn't try to hold on to all of their customers to try and buy only their stuff. So I think they kind of licensed the mount out to a lot of third-party companies to use that mount. And Bowens used to make some really interesting soft boxes and like beauty dishes, really different designs. But I remember that one of their soft boxes had like an oval inner diffuser. So it had an
Correct.
oval one, so it would change the way the light would come in. Or they had one where it was they had a printed sheet on the inside where it was more dense in the middle and kind of feathered out as it came out. So the light would change as it came out to you, or you get like a more even light with that.
True, true.
But I think Japan's kind of are not very big in India. I think they've kind of also.
But even universally, even abroad, I don't know if they're that active now. I don't know if they're selling too much stuff. I don't know.
I think they're just making money off their Bones mount now. So I think everybody's practically using it.
True, true.
But yeah, so I mean, it's for me when I started like my story with Godox also is really funny because I was when I started shooting with Fuji and sorry with Sony, and I heard about TTL for the first time. That was when Profoto was coming out with it, and I mean TTL for the bigger flashes, not your speed lights. And
Correct.
Profoto had come out with it, but they refused to make anything but a Canon version of it for years. And
Got it.
that's when I actually got to know about Godox, and that's when I actually tried them out for the first time. And honestly, they were good lights, man. Like they were for what you're paying for them. Like you're paying what 50K for a Godox AD600 at that point, of 45, 50.
Correct.
In
Yeah.
comparison to a Profoto, which is 1.5 lakhs. At that point, and you're looking at it and saying, does this make sense? And how can you actually ask for 3 times the rate, right? Because that's how much Profotos are in difference. But I think it's a very big thing is, yes, the color accuracy, but the bigger thing is the Profotos can take a kicking.
Correct.
Which I don't know, like the Godox, if you put them out in Bombay sun, I think after 40 flashes, they stop. And for
Yeah.
somebody who's, yeah, I know there are a lot of photographers that go, oh my god, 40 flashes is so much that we won't ever get there to kind of throttle it. And I completely get that. I get, like, if you're not doing commercial work that demands your equipment to be there 100% all the time,
Correct.
it's absolutely fine to go with a brand like Godox, and I think they make some really good lights for the price they sell it at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having said that, I wish Godox had a a Pro Plus version that could handle the heat a lot better. So, like, if you even told me that even if they made one light like the Godox 400 that could take the heat a lot better, so basically you charge me even, like, I think it's about 40K, you charge me even 75K for it, almost double, but it could handle the torture, I would still invest in a Godox, because the closest competition in terms of Profoto is still going to cost you about, like, double. It's
Correct.
still going to cost you about a lakh and a half, a lakh 40, if I'm not. I know I'm getting the rates a little bit wrong off here, but yeah, I think that's a new one, a new pack that's come out.
Yeah. So I wanted to just show this. Give me a second. I'm just going to show. Yeah, but this is what I think you were talking about, and I haven't had a chance to test this out yet.
Hmm.
But this seems like it could be the real deal. 1200 Pro.
Yeah. So
You
again,
know.
like, even with these guys, with Profoto, they've had a 1200-watt battery pack for a very long time.
Oh
It
yeah.
used to be, yeah, it used to be called the 7B initially, and it had two
Sure.
heads and everything, and that basically you could only split the heads in a certain way, but
Correct.
like, you can split I think the power as 50-50, or you could split it as two-thirds and one-third. So if one light is
Got
taking two-thirds, the other light had to get one-third, and that's how you
it. Got it.
control it. I mean, lights were a lot more complex. Math was a lot more complex before. I mean, you always had to, like, just sit down and kind of figure out exactly what you had to do
True.
before you did it. But
True.
they had the 7B, and then they had the B4, the Profoto B4, and then the B2, which is a smaller pack. But they've been doing 1200 lights for a very long time. So I mean, what Godox is doing is not relatively new.
True.
What is
True.
new is, I think they have the HSS function in that, which is a newer option.
Correct.
But again, I don't know how much, like, I can trust a Godox light for professional work. I'd use it for my own work, my own personal work,
Sure.
but I wouldn't bring it on to a shoot knowing that,
Sure.
like, I wouldn't be sure of it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so again, going back to something which is pretty basic and relatively cheap. I think that the trend in this conversation is Ashit's going to talk about all the high-end stuff he's used and owned and stuff, and I'm going to make you laugh with all the really low-end, cheap fixes that I've had. So when I was starting off and I didn't want to bother with learning flash photography, I decided why not experiment with continuous lights. And now again, we had those big babies which you can rent and HMIs and stuff like that. But I was like, dude, I can't do that. I can't. I want to work alone with stuff. So I decided it'd be a smart idea to buy these Sonia halogen lights,
Oh shit! These
which
are like
were
eight monsters.
900 bucks for a light and a tube, 900 rupees. Okay.
Uh,
And you could use them with like a little bit of gel, you could use them with some kind of umbrella. But the kind of heat that this light generated
yeah,
in that small thing, and they were really small, tiny, portable, cheap, everything. But I'm not joking, every time I switched that on after
you
half
could
an hour,
feel
I
it.
was petrified that something's going to catch fire.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I mean, that's the big part about these lights as well, right? The bigger lights are built so that they can take the heat, and the soft boxes are
exactly,
built so they can take the heat. And
exactly.
these also are not meant for, like, photography or video, right? So the kind of, it's not just the light, but also the quality of the light. So, like, if
True,
you
true.
measuring your lights on an index of how color accurate is one light from the
For
next.
sure,
So I mean,
for
those are things
sure.
that we
You
don't even
can't.
think
You can.
about. Yeah, we don't even think about
Yeah,
those things. I mean, when you look at an RE M18, you're like, why are they charging so much for an RE M18? But then you
correct.
start to understand the technology that goes behind it to make sure that when you switch that light on, every single time it's the same form of light that's coming out. or
Exactly.
wherever you put it on. If you like,
Consistency.
how much of a
Yeah.
stress you put on it, it works. But
Correct.
I feel like a lot of that also is changing with brands like Aperture and Godox as well, man.
Yeah.
So Aperture,
Yeah.
it's come out with a 600. I don't know if they've launched it yet, but it's a 600-watt light, which is basically
Okay.
like a 1.8 HMI or tungsten. I don't know which one. Or it's a five. It's like a. It's almost like a 2K light. That's
Got
coming
it.
from a small light that doesn't give out too much heat, that can be
Correct.
run off house power, which is basically like it can be run off your 5 amp plug.
Correct.
You don't need a 15 amp, and you can run it off uh, V mount batteries.
Correct.
Is I think it's kind of like it's kind of the way forward. I don't know. I know that Profoto is also kind of Profoto and Broncolor have some form of LED in their lineup right now. I know that Broncolor came out with a monoblock that has an LED monoblock, but so did Profoto started with the C1 flashes, the small ones, those are all LED. But I think they all understand that it's eventually going to move into just LED lights, and I maybe in the next 3 to 4 years, because that's sustainable as a video light and a still light versus just a still. Because right now lights are only one purpose, and cameras are only like the high end cameras are only one purpose. The lights high end lights are only one purpose, because you can't use like a high end uh, film light on a still thing, because it takes too long for the lights to come on. It takes about 15 minutes for light to warm up, or 10 to 15 minutes for light to warm up, and that's why you need a strobe, so you can kind of mold it a little better. And it's the same thing with your high end medium format cameras as well. You can't shoot video on it. So I
Correct.
think we're kind of coming into a place where it needs to do more than one thing well versus just only video or only stills, because I don't see the value of only doing one anymore. Because I mean, you tell me, I think we're all kind of moving towards a more video centric media platform that
No.
is going to see stills kind of slow down
Sure. Sure.
without scaring anyone.
Sure. That's true. So, okay, what are you using currently? What is your, okay, if you have a commercial shoot and, client calls you and it's like, your typical studio shoot, what is the first thing you call up your light vendor and ask for?
So the
Or
first
what do you
thing that
use from your own bag?
so the most of my work happens on location. So it's kind of like it's like I think 20% happens in the studio and 80% happens on location right now. So I always my first question to my client or my production team is what's the power situation over there? Do we have in-house power,
Okay.
or are we only on battery packs? So basically, that's it. These are very important questions to kind of figure out what your light needs to be. And this comes back to my whole philosophy of not owning anything anymore, because I think the days of owning a large arsenal of lights have kind of gone away, and you need to kind of
True.
keep your entire uh, equipment stack a little short, like little smaller, and rent for whatever requirement you have. So that will keep you a little bit more versatile versus uh, trying to force fit the equipment that you have always into a scenario, because that
Very
doesn't
true.
work all the time. Like if you
Very
have a particular light and you're trying to force fit it, you may not get the best picture that you can get with force fitting that light into the scenario that you're looking at. Like
Very
like
true.
if you're shooting stills or whatever it is. So the first is, do we have power? That's my first question. The second is, what kind of I need to look at it and think about what kind of movement I have in the picture. So if I have like a running shot, for instance, uh, and it's outdoor, I would look at maybe getting, if it's just one picture that I'm going to be taking, I'll probably take it just with a medium format camera. But if it's multiple pictures, I'd probably even look at like a skimmer instead of a flash, or running like a film light into a bounce and kind of molding the entire area versus thing. So again, it's very important for you to figure out what kind of movement you have in the picture, and if you what kind of source of light do you have, source of power do you have? Is it battery packs or thing? Because also with battery packs, if you're going into a location and shooting only with battery packs, I So what people tend to do is they kind of fire one light into a certain direction. What I do is I may put 4 lights in the same stand, so it kind of forms like a little like a
Yeah.
tree of lights that's for going to the same direction or into the bounce or whatever. But I will reduce the power to half a quarter of what it would be.
Okay.
So what one light can accomplish, I will basically put it through maybe about 3 or 4 lights, so that my recycle time is way
It's fast.
faster.
True.
So
It's a good
versus
idea.
yeah, because I mean, what I used to do with one light is you take a picture and then you slow down, you take a picture and then you slow down.
Mm.
Sometimes
Mm.
the best for me, I found the best pictures that I take are pictures right before the picture that you think is going to look good. So
Correct.
like I take a picture while a model is going into a pose rather than when
Mm.
she hits the pose. So that or just maybe
That's it.
like a fraction of a second before she hits
Yeah.
her pose. So like that, there's a little bit more
Correct.
of an edge to the picture versus what everybody else is thinking, what everybody else is creating. So it's, I mean, that movement is a big part of it. So that's how I choose my lights. And it's usually like if it's a location shoot, I usually take the Profoto B1 X's. That's my first thing that I ask for. I know that
Oh,
Profoto
yeah.
basically says that there's no difference between the B1 and the B1X because it's
Mm.
just like
Mm.
a professional flashes and all that. But
Mm.
it, this is purely anecdotal. But when I used it, I noticed that the flashes were a lot more, the recycling a lot more quicker, and the battery lasted a lot more on the Profoto B1.
Really?
Again,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know why. I mean, I've had conversations with equipment dealers and stuff like that, where they tell me this, and when I use it for a shoot, I know the
Mm. Mm.
difference when you're shooting with it, and you're like, okay, fine, this is working well for me. But
Correct.
the B1 X's, I think, are still one of the best lights that you can get for location that are dependable. But having said that, Profoto B1s also overheat. So you need to make sure that if you're shooting in like direct sunlight, especially in Indian summers, you need to have like maybe an umbrella or something over your light, kind of
Correct.
stopping the direct UV rays on the UV and the infrared rays from hitting your
Back.
monoblocks. So they don't
Mm.
overheat as fast.
Correct.
But yeah, Profoto B1s, and if I have location power, then the Pro 10s for sure. I mean, the Pro 10s are always my first choice, but with locations, it's always turning it out to be battery power now.
Understood. And yeah, it's just that peace of mind where you don't have to stress about plugins, power going out. I mean, that's the thing, unless you're shooting in a studio, that you have reliable power. But anywhere
Yeah.
on location, like if you're shooting in a hotel or on location in I don't know, a stadium, I don't know, something like that, it's just like really stressful in a mall or something. You never know, something may blow out and stuff like that, and that can cost you hours of delays in shoots. So you rather just like I would always just go in for a battery powered light if I had a
So
choice.
I like in these situations, what I always do is so if I think I need, let's say, 3 heads for a shot, or
Hmm.
4 heads for a shot, or maybe 5 heads for a shot, I'll always order two more.
Got it.
So I always have so basically my what I usually order is I'll usually order about 4 battery heads, and then I'll order maybe one Pro 10 pack. So like we
Understood.
can, I mean, if needed, because sometimes when you have to basically light up the entire scene, a
Hmm.
battery pack isn't enough. So you need like a Pro 10 pack. So let me just bring up an example of a
Yeah,
shot.
that'll be great. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry guys, that's my typing face. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of. Okay, let me try and share the screen.
Sure.
Yeah, so basically, this picture, I don't know if you guys can see it. So
Yes,
this
got it.
picture was actually, yeah, this was shot after sundown.
Wow.
So yeah, so the shot was actually, it was supposed to be planned at about I think at about 5 o'clock, but because of the schedule, we kept going back in time. I mean, and it just kept getting delayed, and that's why. So basically, what it is, I don't know if you can you see the cursor?
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So around this side of the frame, I had like a a Profoto 8A pack with
Okay.
uh, two 8A packs running into a dual head, and so
Sorry,
basically I was taking power.
we lost your,
Yeah.
sorry, we lost your cursor. If you can just help us with like directions, top left, top right.
So it's on the
Yeah,
so if
I
you're
can
looking
see.
at the picture on the left hand side, on top here, where
Got
I'm
it.
kind of moving the thing. So
Okay.
so I had so there's something called a dual head with which Profoto makes, and it's basically one head that can go
Yeah.
into a modifier. Plus, it has two different. So as it comes down, it has two outlets that you can put into two different packs. So it's
Oh,
either for a higher power or it's for quicker recycle, like what I used to do with with the two three heads, right?
yeah, yeah.
So there's a very big pack over here. We had to replace the sky in this to make it look
Hmm, hmm,
more grayish. But if you look over here in the
hmm.
shed, like the building behind,
Yeah.
you see shadows going upward over here,
Hmm, hmm.
and
Correct.
that's from the what do you say, the mod.
Got it. Got
So
it.
so so in those situations, you need way more power, and that's kind of like, if you really ask me, that's kind of my forte. It's lighting up very difficult scenarios. So
Nice.
I like to use like the big lights in those situations. And I think the Pro 10s and the Pro Photo 8As were my favorite pack before the Pro 10s. And it's like those are, I mean, I swear by them. Like if you put me in a situation where I'm using these lights, I don't stress about the lights. But I have used the Godox on a professional shoot, and it was stacked up with the Profoto and the Godox. Basically, I don't know if I told you about this time where first big shoot I did with the Sony A7R2, which I
Okay.
had the Godox trigger and I had a Profoto trigger on top of that.
Correct. Correct.
So yeah, so I was using both lights, and that was a very good example for me to see how reliable each light is. And the Profoto kept going, the Godox just stopped working, and
Yeah.
we had to
Wow.
keep turning it off and turning it back on, turning it off and turning it back on, which is really, I mean, when you're shooting really quick and then your lights keep going off,
Yeah.
it's a point of stress that you don't need on a
For
professional,
sure.
like on
For
a
sure.
pro job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just so it's difficult. But yeah, I've kind of gone through the entire cycle of lights, and what Godox is doing is really special. I still think so. I think the stand that they have in the market also is really special because they're kind of catering to the stills crowd, and they're catering to the video crowd now with the
Correct.
new Godox VL lights.
Correct.
And it's like, I feel the future is LED for sure. But right now, with Profoto lights, I think Profoto is kind of the company I would vouch like buy. And then second option I'd say is Broncolor. If Pro photos aren't available, like I'd go with a Bron.
Understood. Understood. So that's another thing. You know, you talk. You
What I'm
spoke.
going to do?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was saying another thing you spoke about is, just wanting your gear to work. It's not about having the fanciest features. It's not about all of that is like secondary, but you just want something reliable. And the worst experience for
Yeah,
a commercial photographer, any professional, is for having the equipment to fail. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many megapixels you have. If your camera doesn't work and you miss out on that shot, and this is important for obviously commercial photographer, but also for like say someone like a wedding photographer, where you're talking about you can't relive that moment. You can't so a lot of wedding photographers have started investing in better equipment. It's not earlier, they would like use any on camera flash. Now people are investing in like a Profoto A1, Profoto B10s, and small, portable, but at the same time reliable. That's, I think, the key. For someone who is, if you're making money out of photography, you have to make sure that you deliver every single time you're hired. So that's why these high-end lights
yeah.
cost this
I mean,
much. And
no, but the thing is, Gaurav, that's the beauty of where the kind of the time we live in as well right now. You
yeah.
don't need to buy any equipment, and that's the
True,
best part
exactly.
about this. And I can tell you, yeah, as a photographer, in between, I think in 2013 or 14, I didn't have a camera for almost a year and a half
Oh, really? Wow.
because my my medium format had gone for like repairs and it just didn't come. It just didn't come back. And like every time it would like they'd say that this part is coming, that part is coming. I didn't have a camera, and that made me realize that you don't need to own anything right now. It's just because you can like we were discussing the other day as well. We can walk into a shoot with your cell phone and
Exactly.
everything else can be brought there. So you can bring up, like you have laptops been brought in, lights, camera, cables, assistants that come in, and if you have a good digitech, he'll bring
Yeah.
everything in, and they'll make sure that everything's tested before they come in as well. And this is more now. I mean, a lot of photographers right now don't own all the gear, and I don't think people that are starting up should also kind of stress about how they're going to kind of buy the gear that they need because you don't need it.
True.
It's you really don't need it anymore. And if you want to try it out, it's not so expensive to rent it. It's
True.
because
Very true.
I think like a Profoto B1 you can kind of rent at 2K a day or
Yeah.
3K a day if I'm not mistaken, and it comes with the light boy and everything. And you
Yeah.
don't need to spend 1 or 2 lakhs on something that you may use 5 times over the next year.
Very true.
So it's simple math, right? You'd rather spend, if it's going to be shooting 5 times the next year, it's going to cost you 15K versus 2 lakhs. And this is a
True.
big mistake I used to make in the beginning of my career as well, because I had some of the best gear, but I didn't have anything else. I had I had my bike, I had my HD Road King, and I had a kinetic that was thing, but that's all I had. And I used to basically lug around this expensive gear that was worth a lot more than
True.
like some of the fancy cars out there at that point. But I did not have anything else but gear, and
Correct.
and that gear that you keep spending on, eventually it loses its
Value. Yeah.
value just in a matter of like few years. So
True.
you need to ask yourself like this: does it make sense? You'd rather have like a subscription basis with different rental houses, and I can
True.
recommend a few rental houses in Bangalore, Bombay, and Delhi
Yeah.
for anybody who's listening that would like to basically test out these lights. That I use on a regular basis. So the thing that I carry with me in my bag is I carry a Profoto trigger and for Fuji and a Profoto trigger for Sony, but I mostly use only the Fuji. And that trigger I carry everywhere in the world with me because sometimes they have the lights or wherever, but they don't have the trigger because Fuji is not a very popular system yet among pro
Correct.
photographers, but it's getting there. It's getting there, and it's getting there quite fast as well. So I carry the trigger with me, and so to make sure that the trigger has all the what do you say, all the firmwares updated and stuff like that. I also carry the firmware for all the lights that are in production right
Okay.
now.
Wow.
I carry a copy of the firmware on my laptop. So in
Oh, wow.
case wherever I go, the lights aren't updated, I sit down and I kind of update the lights. So this is really important to get to your shoot at least 1 hour before you
People.
want to start getting anything done. So like
True.
just getting there and making sure that your light boys get there with you, so that you just spend 10 minutes kind of just make sure everything is working. Because sometimes even with rental houses, you don't get stuff that's working off. Like if
Yeah.
you need to update the firmware, it takes about 10 minutes. But
Correct.
that's 10 minutes you don't have.
True.
So it's important to kind of get there a little earlier and kind of make sure that you try and iron out all these creases.
And yeah, what I would recommend is definitely don't start off with like renting out all this high-end equipment or renting out equipment on big jobs. Start off with smaller jobs or start renting it on test shoots. I know, like
Yeah.
personally, I know Ashit, spends a lot of money on renting out equipment on for test shoots where you're like, why? Like, like he's not making money on that particular shoot. But that makes so much sense because then and that's the thing with gear, you can't just land up and expect to know how it works in and out on the job. So you want to be prepared, you want to know how everything works, you want to know how to troubleshoot just in case, I don't know, a flash, like a bulb burst or something like that, what all can go wrong, so that when you're on the job. And that's the whole thing, all these things add up to a more professional experience for your client. When they're paying you so much money, they just want a smooth experience. They don't want to deal with, oh my god, okay, the light is not working, the camera is not working, so it's not my fault. but it is still your fault because you are the person who hired that stuff. You're the person who wanted to use that equipment, so you are responsible in some way or the other for failed equipment. So it's better to be prepared for anything that can come your way.
So it's funny that you say about the troubleshooting, right? It's
Yeah.
actually so it's something that I don't pay too much attention to because I cannot do it really often. But
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people understand that because when things go wrong, your head doesn't work because at
Hmm.
that point he's going fuck or shit without swearing. Sorry, yeah. But this is like literally this is like a friend of mine had asked for like a troubleshooting thing with Profoto, and it's something that I just typed out and sent out to her, and I didn't
Hmm.
realize
Hmm.
that there's so many things that I do to kind of make sure that the light is working all the time.
Hmm.
And like this is with thing. I'm just gonna send it to you, Gaurav. I don't know if you can put it up
Yeah,
on the
please
page.
send it. Yeah.
But yeah,
All
hopefully there's
right.
no swears or personal advice in that message that I just
Oh,
sent you.
that's interesting. Wait, give me a second. I'm just gonna put that up as a note so that people can see that.
Yeah. So it's like stuff like this is something that I don't I don't take so seriously because I do it subconsciously, but it's something that
Got
a
it.
lot of people need to pay attention to. And again, these conversations when I'm having this aren't targeted to um complete amateur photographers, right? Because I know these situations are probably something they never come across until they
True.
start shooting pro. But this is important information from I'd say the beginning of your career to kind of follow up till you start to do like larger work.
Correct. So yeah, this
But
is what Ashish sent me. A guide. Okay, I don't know if you can. Yeah, I think that's pretty legible.
yeah, so this is my Profoto guide to try and figure out why it doesn't work with Fuji cameras. And this is it's it's really strange because with each one of these points that you're looking at, right? It's been like something messed up on some shoot, and that's
Correct.
how I worked around it, right? Like little things like the HSS needs to be selected on the trigger.
Hmm.
That's something I had to try on a day that I wasn't shooting, and I had to get the softwares in and all of that. It's like these things are easier to do when you're sitting in a studio and you have access to the
Hmm.
lights, but sometimes when you don't have access to it, it's
Yeah.
you get like really messed up because
Sure.
it messes with your head. Like there was one entire shoot that I used these lights that I thought they were firing at high speed, and they weren't.
Okay. Okay.
And I was just looking at it as like I was like, what's happening? The entire like first half an hour, 45 minutes, I was like, I didn't understand if it's firing or not. So what I did was then I figured out a way to figure out if your lights are working is face your camera with the light in the frame. So you're facing like you're pointing at the strobe itself. You take a picture on the top of the frame, and you take a picture
Okay.
of the bottom of the frame. So basically, you move
Okay.
the light to the bottom and the top. Then you know
Okay.
it's firing in HSS because if it's on normal normal sync thing, it will
Yeah.
fire on top and won't fire at the bottom because by the time the
I
shutter is
didn't
already
know
closed.
that. I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, so you need to that's how I started to figure out whether your high speed thing is working or not. These are like it's a really simple way of kind of checking it, but it's basically you shoot a picture and then you know exactly whether it's working or not.
Got it.
Sometimes it's literally taking the cable out and then like reinserting it that kind of activates these things. But you need to be sure. And but again, these are all problems that I don't think we're going to face in the next couple of years. These
Correct.
are these are all problems that I face going through whatever I do, and you tend to be a bit more of a troubleshooter while doing jobs like this because your brain kind of goes into that let's fix a problem versus anything else. I mean,
Yeah.
usually you plan to fix a problem, but then you just say you let it go, and then when a problem comes, it's easier for you to fix it
True.
without anticipating it.
True.
But yeah,
And also, I want to talk about. We'll go on for a few more minutes. I want to talk about what do you use currently in terms of what's in your camera bag in terms of
uh,
light.
in terms, I think I have a Godox V1. That's
Okay.
all. I mean, in terms of a flash, It's kind of like an emergency flash that I keep with me because
Nice.
in case there's a picture that needs to be taken,
Yeah,
in case of emergencies, I don't know if
for
that ever
sure.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
I
I
have.
mean, so this is what the V1 looks like. This is what he's talking about. It's basically a small speed light, and funnily enough, before the like literally 3 days before the lockdown, I decided to pick up two of these for because I have a set of bigger studio strobes that I was like, in case I need to shoot something at home, I have no patience to go and set up like a big light with a big softbox and a big boom stand. All that stuff is just like tiring. So I was just like, I'll pick up two of these. They were both 15K each. So that plus a couple of small modifiers and an umbrella. And under 35K, I was able to, with a trigger, with high speed sync, I was able to, shoot so much commercial work and so much work from home, stuff. And that's honestly spoiled me. And yes, the colors aren't the most consistent. I can see that, but the work that I was doing, and I am still shooting from home, over the last few months. That stuff doesn't really demand the highest quality, and it's mostly digital. It's mostly stuff for Instagram and stuff like that. So, and just the size and portability of these, and battery life and the modifier. So I picked up this small set which has a barn door, a snoot, and all these filters and stuff like that. And
AKR1 or something like that, right? That kit.
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm very impressed, man. I'm very very impressed. So that's the thing. I Of course, we've you still own the Fujifilm GFX 100, which is I think most high end, um, not consumer level but professional level, without going to the Hasselblads and stuff like that. And we've all invested in like these really expensive things, but I still feel like sometimes you just need to go back to the basics and go back to stuff. Like I personally, for a lot of my personal work, just stuck to natural light because I was lazy to pull out these lights out of my boot of my car, or from storage, and set up like a big strobe and all. It's tiring, it's time consuming. You to worry about plug points, or worrying about, okay, the model is getting bored and whatever. When you're shooting personal work, and I shoot a lot of portraits and stuff like that, I just want something very portable, fast, and stuff like that. So I initially would go into using some of these really cheap Yongnuo LED light wands, but
Yeah.
I hated the way because you can't use the modifiers. I hated how it's just really ugly, sticky light. I don't know how to describe it. It's like Bombay sweat on on models. I don't know how to explain it, but it just wouldn't give you consistent colors. Forget consistent colors, nice colors at all. You're dealing with like crazy white balance and stuff like that. So I eventually picked up these Godox V1s, the speed lights which I showed you all earlier, and highly recommend them for someone who's starting off, or someone who who wants these two small lights that fit into your like camera bag, and you don't have to worry about power. You can just like pull them up, attach them to an umbrella, and you have like almost like professional looking power for really cheap. So yeah,
Yeah,
for
no,
the
it's definitely, it's again, I say the same thing. It's what does your work require? Like sometimes it's, you just need to look at it that way. You don't necessarily need a medium format. You don't necessarily need an APS-C camera. You don't necessarily need what do you say, a full frame camera. It's just what does the job
true.
need? That needs to be the bigger priority. Like if you want to
Yeah.
shoot a picture, I mean a couple of pictures of somebody running, you'd
Hmm.
rather have a camera that can take it than force fit a light to it. So
True.
like you look at the action that you want to get from it, or the picture needs to be the bigger priority than the equipment. So you need to use whatever equipment you can use to get that picture to where it needs to be. That's I feel the bigger priority for me. That's why uh, I try not to like spend so much on buying equipment and keeping it at home, because I don't want to feel forced to use that equipment. And
Yeah.
then I mean I do pick up equipment. I pick up a lot of equipment, and then I end up, I think, once every year and a half, I'm just like, let's sell things, because
Yeah.
it's just I had like some lights, like I had the Godox 8200, which I'd taken to South Africa with me, and I got
Yeah.
two of them so I could put them into an adapter and use it as a 500-watt light. But I didn't even
Correct.
have to do that. Like an 8200 by itself was enough light, but
True.
the thermal throttling killed it. And I tell
Oh,
you that
really? Yeah.
that's the saddest part of it. It is like the pictures what I was getting from that were beautiful, but
I
it's just
love the pictures. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, every 40 to 45 flashes because the high speed syncs, it is like
Oh,
I think I'm just going to share a screen, share a
go ahead.
picture that I took with this.
Yeah.
And so this picture was actually taken with a Godox 8200, a single one with, I think,
Wow.
normal reflector and I think a butter paper on top of that.
Nice.
And it's moved. I think my work has also moved a lot more from super like more like flashy work. Like this is shot in a studio, by the way. So this entire thing was lit up. It was made so that we were basically shooting it in a studio. This
Nice.
is where like the larger lights come into play.
Correct.
So my entire style has changed from a lot more.
I love these pictures, man. Cape Town pictures. I don't know if it's just Cape Town, but I just love
Yeah, these are Cape
everything
Town, but
about it. The
yeah,
mixture of the medium format with the flash and outdoor. It's just such a beautiful look.
yeah, no, the again, like I'm saying, the light also there is very different. Like even this was shot with uh, the Godox 8200,
Correct.
and I've gotten to a place where I don't look at the flash as a separate thing by itself. I
Hmm.
look at
Hmm.
it more as it's kind of just accompanying the light. If I'm going to be shooting outdoors, I wanted to accompany it. If the light is really shit outdoors, then it's my main light. So if it's like overcast and stuff like that, I'd promote the strobes to be the key light. But if there's great
Correct.
light outside, I'd use the strobes to just kind of get in there and just kind of give it a little bit of kick without
Correct.
looking flashy. I mean that's what I'm trying to avoid right now with my work. I feel like that's very like it's a very dated look to make things look like I don't know how to describe it otherwise, like flashy. That's the word that comes to mind.
Sure. Sure. That's cool. Okay, so I don't see any questions. Any question, guys? I see there are 5 people viewing. So if you'll have any questions, we'll let this run for a couple of minutes more. If
I
you
think we got
don't,
a lot more questions on Instagram, no?
oh yeah, yeah. I forgot about that. Sorry, forgot to talk about that. Do you want to start, or should I ask you a question?
Just read out
Since
the question. We'll figure out
okay,
which one.
is there something called good and bad lighting? Isn't it subjective as how one perceives an image? Raghav Ramaya.
I mean, I don't think there's bad lighting. There's boring lighting, but I don't think there's bad lighting. So sometimes when you're kind of looking at a little bit more of a overcast day where everything looks flat, what you need at that point is not you don't need more lights, you need more negative fill to kind of give more of a shadow. So when I look at lights, honestly, I don't look at it as the main thing. I look at what kind of shadows I can create with that light.
Got it.
Because for me, I feel like a lot more interest lies in the shadow than the light itself. So
Very true.
it's like a picture when you look at it that's lit well, you go, wow, it looks so nice because the light's coming from here. But
Hmm.
I feel like most of the drama is coming from the fact that the shadow is coming from here
Very
versus
true.
the light coming from here, right? Because the shadow can kind of define the amount of drama that you want in the picture. Like if you put a light from below, it goes up. It's a little bit more of that the horror
Yeah,
serial killer kind of look
yeah,
or
yeah.
the television. So it's more the shadow for me than the light itself. Even
Very
though
true.
we are projecting light, it's more shadow. So I'd say like in a time where it's kind of overcast, I'd say use negative fills, use black to kind of basically cut out like basically the light everywhere is kind of cut out to give it more shape. Uh, and yeah, good light is just I mean you can't say anything about good light. Good light is just looks good.
True. Tushar Khandelwal has a question. Hey Ashit, can you share the name of the rental houses in Bangalore and Bombay?
So I use there are two people in Bangalore that I use. There's Exo Rental and ACS, Arun Cine Services. Both of these guys are really good. In Bombay, I use EXO and Shiva, and in Delhi, I use EXO only.
Got it. Okay, that's cool. Next question, UD's vision. You've done a lot of amazing outdoor shoots. Describe the light setup in detail and also one light setup and settings. You want to get into that, or should we stay there for another session?
I think maybe we can just do a session with a light breakdown, or maybe we should do one light breakdown in each session so that people
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
coming back. Haha.
yeah. Okay, he's also asked in the same. He's actually asked a couple of more questions. You can
Okay.
probably answer one of them. Which types of light setups do you use on your shoot? So I think you kind of mentioned,
It's
how
yeah,
what you use. Yeah,
it's the mood of the shoot. There's nothing specific that
exactly.
uh, I'd say, but I usually have a set kind of package that I take of the lights that I want. So it's usually four B1 X's, maybe Pro 10 or two. So it's basically with two heads each. So it's four heads over there. And then my modifiers are usually my favorite modifier that I like right now is uh, an indirect octa by Ellen. I think they make some of the best indirect octas. Uh,
Is it a
I feel
light
like,
motive?
yeah, sorry.
Are, are they called a light motive series on the light motive
Now they
series?
call light motive, yeah. Now they call light motive.
Got it.
So they're really good. They're not very expensive if you
Sure.
compare them to the prices of the other one.
True.
Like an indirect octa can run you about uh, 50K, I think, for a 7 6 7 feet one.
Correct.
And but I'm kind of moving away from that as well. I'm kind of using more reflective sources. So I bounce it off skimmers and different things to kind of uh, feather the light more. So the thing is, when I feel when you use a soft box, you're kind of giving the direction, you're giving the light direction. You're saying that this light needs to go in this direction. That's why I'm basing the soft box this way. But with a flat board, you can't control the light except for maybe very subtly. And what happens is the fall off from light to shadow is a lot smoother as well.
Correct.
So, but I mean, I'd say a big thing about my lighting is I make sure that there are no key lights in like maybe 70 to maybe about 120 degrees in front. So there's no lights ever that come in front of a model like this. Like I don't have lights that face models. It's
Okay.
usually like I keep a light exactly maybe 90 degrees like, in front of the model, but just kind of catching the absolute edge of the light on her versus the light being panned on her or him. So
Interesting.
I if you I think you need to pay more attention to the shadows when you're lighting than to the light itself. But the light it'll create something, but when you get interesting shadows,
True.
that's what can change the picture. Well, I'll give you an example. This
Yeah, please
sorry, to share screen again.
go for it.
So even in this picture, when you look at it,
Hmm.
there is a shadow that's running in between over
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of fill from the other side that's coming in. Your main light is coming from the right of the model. There's fill over here, but there's shadows over here.
Correct.
This is one example, but let me just try and get you a better example that you can kind of see where the shadows I'm talking about. This is a good example. So in this, if
Hmm.
you notice, your main light is coming from here, and you're getting a fill from here. But this sliver of shadow that's coming over
Hmm.
here
Hmm. Hmm.
and over here is what makes the picture more interesting
For
because
sure.
these two other lights. So it's like you can pay attention to the highlights that they're sharing, but I think more interest is there usually in the shadows than the thing. And I try not to ever light from in front unless that it absolutely needs it. Like this picture also is shot
Correct.
from outside, like almost
Yeah.
90 degrees, where it's there's almost shadow on the other side. This is
Yeah.
one, and
It just looks more. I think it looks more natural and less flash like it. I think
yeah,
that's the whole idea. Yeah.
yeah. Like I never try and because my thing is I try and never keep the light in front unless it's the sun or something like that. The sun also I try to keep it as much to the side as possible so
Correct.
that it stays a little interesting.
Nice. Nice. Okay. Just going to check one. Okay, Devang Bhandari had a question. Mixing ambient and strobe light in harsh light situations is difficult for me. Do you have any tips?
So it's hard light again. It's just it depends on where you put the hard light first. So it's really this is where your recce comes into play. Like you really need to make sure that you're at the right location at the right time. And
Correct.
this is something that I do with all my pictures. So let's just say if this is like you're looking at this frame right now, and this is what you want to take a picture of, I'd say place somebody in the picture and have
Hmm.
them point towards it. So like for me right now, the sun is right in front. So I'd have somebody standing in the picture and pointing in front like this. So when I look at that picture, I know where the sun is going to be. So if I need to be there at like midday, I'd make sure that it's after like a 12, so where the sun is probably behind them a little bit. So if you place the sun behind them, then mixing your ambient in is a lot. I mean, your flash in is a lot easier.
Understood.
Versus if the like you're getting like panda eyes, basically if the sun's coming directly on top, then it's no good. Like it your clothes usually are thing, but again it's what's the mood of the picture. The mood of the picture is hard light,
Hmm.
grungy. Then I just like I put a light on a bare reflector and just like blast them from the like slightly in the front to kind of
I
give it that
think,
little bit grungy
yeah.
look.
So I like in a harsh light, like what I would do is probably either diffuse the light, with a skimmer or reflector on top of the model to avoid the harsh light on the thing, and like fill in with my light. Or then if you really have the power in your strobe, then go all out and overpower the light, or probably have the harsh light, the natural light, fall in from a slight 60 degrees from the back as a hair light and a key light, and then fill in
Yeah,
with your. That's what probably you can do as well. Yeah.
yeah. So I found that trying to mix it in when it's coming from the front looks very unnatural. So like
Correct.
I just ideally just keep it in the back, keep it on the side somewhere, and then just like, blend it in as much as possible. I
Correct.
mean, this is again for something in my taste, but the skimmer is a good idea. But then the skimmer also has a very particular look to it. Like when you're
True.
shooting outdoors and you're shooting a skimmer shot, so what
Yeah.
it immediately does is you need to match the power of your flash to this so that your background doesn't blow out. Because what you're doing is by putting the skimmer on top, you're immediately cutting off about a stop of light so when you try to explore expose for this, the background is like just basically
No doubt.
hotspots
Yeah.
all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So uh, ideally, it's you make better choices with what time you're going to be shooting at the location to try
Yeah.
and make sure that you don't have harsh light. But if you do have harsh light, I'd say place it behind the model first and expose for the location first, and then tweak your flash in. So that's the advantage we have with flashes right now, where we can kind of just bring it in step by step to a certain extent. So I always bring my I'd expose my location first, and then I start bringing the flashes in until it starts to look too flashy. Like I look at it, it looks a little bit artificial. Then I dial
Mhm.
it down by about like a third of a stop. Because I
Understood.
usually find that that's the sweet spot for me.
Understood. Okay. Most of the other questions you've kind of asked already, you've answered already throughout the session. But there's one question by the sarcastic egg. Does it make practical sense to carry a strobe for an outdoor shoot as opposed to a speed light? So basically, again, it really depends on the power. I think it depends on what your requirement is. It's such a personal thing, and if you're shooting like a pre-wedding or a normal portrait session outdoor, I think a speed light is fine. If you need a lot of power and you really want to overpower the sun, and you need to use bigger modifiers or freeze your subject, I think strobe is better.
Yeah, it depends on very importantly how far does the flash need to be from your subject. So if it's
Correct.
a face
True.
picture, I could use
Correct.
a speed light and go shoot it. But
Very
if
true.
it's a group picture of a couple of people standing, a speed light may not be enough. So
Very true.
again, it's just I feel like all of these problems are going to change eventually when like you have global shutters, because then you can be like a speed light's power will be a lot more as well. You'll be using it a lot more efficiently. But let's not talk about future tech right now. But yeah, it's very important to kind of figure out how much of the picture you want to light. So how much are you looking at, and how much movement there is, and what is the frequency
Correct.
you're going to be shooting at? Are you going to be doing one frame per second, or do you have the luxury of shooting and letting it recycle before going to the next picture?
Correct. Yeah, and also I think that's a good idea for a future session about talking about the kind of tech that the completely geeky stuff about what we expect to come and the patents that are kind of filed and what our dream cameras would kind of like consist of in terms of the dream features and stuff like that. So that's a good idea. We can probably say that for another session.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
know.
this was a good session. Any other questions, guys?
So trying to look through what they've said.
I checked. You've answered most of them.
There's something about tell us about the 5 feet and 7 feet diffuser.
Correct. UT's vision.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a 5 feet and 7 feet diffuser. It depends, man. Like if it's what kind of modifier is it, and what the direction is. So if this is the soft box, is the light going pointing that way, or is the light pointing this way? Because that changes the thing of the light as well. I prefer um, indirect sources. So I like it when it bounces. I like beauty dishes that it bounces inside and goes all over the place. Or on the other hand, I prefer direct. So basically the flash without any kind of modifier. When it gives a nice
Extreme.
hard, yeah. So I use I'd say every single format of it. It's usually I use the two extremes. I don't know if I use the in between ones as much. So it's
Mhm.
usually really hard light for me, like bare lights, or it's the other end of using super soft lights, just kind of give it a little bit of fill where it's required.
Correct. So
What
yeah,
about you?
I mean, personally, I keep on switching my. I don't really have again a personal favorite. It really depends on the kind of job. If you're shooting like a commercial advertising job in a studio, um, I like a bit of punch on the face, but then rest of my subjects or rest of the background and stuff like that is pretty subtle and more towards a soft diffuse light. Again, that's for the advertising projects. If it's because you want it to be basically clean cut, looking clean and happy and nice, and that's most of my work. But yeah,
Hmm.
do when I do experiment and do like personal shoots, or when I do shoots for like more fashion oriented stuff, I again go in slightly into the opposite direction of using either bare flash. I'm talking about even without a reflector,
Hmm.
just a bare bulb, or go into you shooting in like 12 o'clock sun or like 3 p.m. sun, where you get those deep blue skies and that harsh shadows on the
Hmm.
model and the texture on the fabric and skin and stuff. It all depends on what you're shooting, what it is for. It's a very personal thing. So even when people ask what is your favorite modifier, what is your favorite lighting technique, I think as a professional, you just have to like know how to do a bit of everything, so that depending on what the brief is and what your requirement is, you can kind of deliver.
Yeah,
you know
no, there's something that I heard a long time ago. You need to know all the rules to be able to break it, and
True.
that's something that's really important. That we need to kind of understand the technicalities of how a light works to be able to know how not to use it or to use it, right? So it's understanding what a modifier can do is really important, but also understanding what you can kind of rig that modifier to do in a different way is also important. So there is a technical aspect to it, yes, but if you were to ask me right now, what's the kind of investment in terms of time and knowledge that somebody should put into lighting is right now, I'd say look at alternate sources of lighting like LED versus just only strobes, because it's probably something that will help your career in the longer run in the next couple of years versus just trying to
Yeah,
learn strobes right now.
sure. But a
Because
lot of people struggle. A lot of people do struggle. See, that's the whole thing. With continuous light, it's a little more easier, and to kind of understand the whatever the way it works, the softness, hardness, because you're seeing what you're getting.
hmm,
Versus strobe, a lot of people have these questions about what modifier, how far away this thing. And for me, I was lucky enough to learn from like really good mentors and stuff like that, and had the time to practice. But I would suggest everyone invest in like at least one light, whether it's one continuous light or one speed light, and then just keep on shooting. So where you can pick up something really like something way cheaper than the Godox V1s as well. You can pick up
There's
these.
a Godox LC 500 as well, which is like
Yeah,
the
I
stick
have that.
lights.
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
that.
I think that's a good investment as well,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the speed light is like a one trick pony. So you can basically use it for stills and that's about it, right? You
correct.
can, but with the way photography is merging with video, it's good to have something that you can kind of use for two purposes versus
Very
just
true.
only for stills.
Very true.
So maybe
Yeah,
that will help. Yeah.
they come in RGB, formats as well, so you can kind of use any kind of mixture of light, and you don't have to worry about gelling them, hardness, softness. They come with barn doors, I think, as well. So yeah, definitely, pick up one light, use it for like 10 shoots, understand all the qualities of it, and then think about upgrading. I know I have a lot of people who signed up for I'm doing a mentorship program as well. A lot of people who have signed up, and they're like, okay, it's been 6 months since we started photography. I have a Profoto A1, Profoto B10, and I'm
Wow.
like, dude, that's crazy. Who asked you to pick up all this stuff? So that's the thing, you get into the when you see so much of marketing, and you see so much of so many photographers using this high end equipment, you feel like by just investing money in that, you will be able to use it. But I don't suggest going that route, because the way at least I learned is, start off with like whatever as basic stuff as you can. If you don't have anything, use like the flash on your use the LED on your phone, and
Hmm.
darken the whole room up, shoot at night if you need to, make this your only source, and you can create decent pictures with that. Use a torch. Start off with something really basic, and then build up to something more high end, like a
No,
flash or something.
definitely. Like I honestly think that I don't think you should need to buy equipment anymore. The rental houses do a great job of kind of giving it to you.
Yeah, yeah,
Up until that you're doing so much work that you need to have the equipment with you
exactly.
all. That's another scenario that I mean
Yeah,
that changes by itself. But uh, I don't buy things you don't need. That's a really important part of what this is. It's because like you tend to like end up spending so much on gear, and like there's so much money that gets wasted. It's just I'd say like if you have a lakh that you want to spend on gear, make an FD with it, and like it's that simple. Go make an FD with it, or maybe like even look at whatever interest you're making from that money you can put back into renting gear like once in 2 months. And this is again, I'm saying if you're not doing professional work, if you're
exactly.
not doing it all the time, because when you're doing professional work and you're getting paid to do something, there's a very good chance that your client is willing to pay for the equipment as well.
True.
So if you're charging your client 3 or 4 thousand bucks for the lights, it's again something that doesn't come out of your pocket.
True.
It's something that's going to somebody else, but it's you are not under the stress of trying to make the money back for the equipment that you've already invested in,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
to take care of the equipment with the boys and everything. Because when you rent it out and you spend 3 or 4K even for a beginner kit, if somebody is coming with the lights to take care of everything with you, and we don't have to take care of shit. So that's the important part. I be a little smarter with the investments in photography, because all that glitters is not gold.
That's another this thing. I want to do a session about money. As a photographer, as a creative, I'm no expert, but I feel like just talking about experiences and talking about good investments, bad investments in terms of gear, or how what we did and what we could have changed, will be a good lesson for a lot of people. Because again, with the current times where you're waiting, and you're hoping that work comes back in like full force. A lot of people are stressing about their current situation in terms of money. So I think we could probably talk about it. If you want us to talk about that, comment below whenever this goes on YouTube, and let us know what you want us to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I think it's a great. I mean, I haven't had by any chance figured out how to spend my money. This is
Yeah,
some.
none of us have, but at least we can talk about what we could have probably,
Yeah,
changed.
definitely.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's first you need to just kind of get out of the whole marketing thing. You need to understand that marketing is there for a reason. Like I'm part of the problem sometimes when I'm trying to sell somebody jeans that they don't need to buy. So there's another person that's doing the exact same thing to us, but trying to sell us lights or trying to
Correct.
sell us a camera. And
And
again, this is again
lens.
a non-biased version. Like neither of us are sponsored by any of these companies, so we have no gain by
True.
saying something nice about them or something rude about them. But it's more of an objective view on how we use these things versus trying to be a shill for any other company. It's just stuff that we use and stuff that we use on more of a professional basis than just like as a hobbyist.
Very true.
But yeah, I think we're good. Do you have any other questions that we missed?
No, have a look if you want to. This thing, I think you answered most of them. There were people who asked. Serish asked about Profoto, Broncolor. Which one do you prefer?
Profoto. Woohoo!
Or,
I don't get paid by Profoto, but I wouldn't mind if
what?
Profoto paid me money. I'm just saying. And yeah, I think that's about it, man. I don't think there's any other questions. I think we pretty much covered most of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess you just need to kind of figure out what kind of shoot you're doing to kind of figure out what kind of lights you're going to use.
True, true. I know that's the most boring answer, but it's such a personal thing, Like as a photographer, like it's like kind of asking us like asking an artist what paintbrush do you recommend? It really depends on what is comfortable on you, with you. So
It's also
uh,
something that matches your technique and your experience. Like if I
exactly.
tell you what I use and you end up using it on a shoot without any experience, you
Yeah,
could get
you're
like messed up, and you
yeah,
could.
you're gonna curse us. You're gonna curse us because it's
No,
not something.
there have been photographers. There's a guy in from Delhi. He called me and he's like, "See, Ashit, I want to use a mini format camera for specifically this thing, but I haven't used one before." And my first thing to him was, "Don't use it.
Don't use.
Don't use it because it's like you take your camera." And he was just shooting with I think a 5D Mark IV, and I said, "Carry your camera, rent a 5D uh,
SR.
5DS, whatever the higher megapixel one." I said, use that if you want the higher megapixel because it's a better chance to get a better picture on that versus a medium format camera where you may not get anything that you want because you
True.
need you need you need to practice with it before just going and shooting with it.
True.
If you have an understanding of light to a certain extent where you can kind of manipulate it on any camera, it's a lot easier. But I mean, like a simple thing like a medium format is basically less light on the sensor because the lenses are a lot like the f-stop's a lot higher. So I always find that what I could shoot on a 1.8 on a full frame will probably take me a 3.5 on a medium format. So it's just these things that you didn't anticipate, it kind of figures it out. So definitely the lower like APS-C is way more beginner friendly than
True.
a full frame or a medium format, but they're each like one step above the last. But you just need to figure out what you actually need. Because I think a lot of people have like I think a lot of the photography awards in 2019 were given to Fuji cameras. So it's
Yeah.
not yeah, as in a lot of awards that people won were with Fuji cameras, and that's something that
APS-C. True.
APS-C. It's kind of like the camera that you have with you and you take it out to shoot. I mean, with them being weatherproof and stuff like that, you don't overthink it, right? Like if you had A73, I'd be like, is it weather sealed or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
But with an XT3 and XT4, I know it's completely weather sealed. I've seen people shoot in the rain with it.
True. I have. Yeah.
Yeah, and that brings us to next week's topic.
Ah, okay. Nice. I
This
can't
is
wait to I'll come pick it up this week.
yeah, we have
Nice.
enough time to. I think I'm going to try and shoot some film with it as well. I mean, this camera, it's got me more excited on the film front than the stills front for sure. 'Cause I
Yeah.
think the stills front is kind of set by a standard of on the GFX, but
Mm-hmm.
film is something that I'm really excited about to
Nice.
try and see where this goes. But
Nice.
yeah, I think hopefully we've answered everybody's questions.
Yes.
And just I mean, if you have any more questions, just drop it in the description, and maybe we'll try and answer it over there.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ashit. I will see you soon. I'll see you next week.
See you next Saturday.
You come up we'll discuss internally and decide for a topic next week. But if you all have suggestions, please comment below and let us know what you would like us to talk about, and we'll definitely try to do that.
And we can randomly ramble on about it as well.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. See you
Okay,
guys.
guys. Bye bye. Thank you.